Hello, everybody. Thank you for your hard work this week. And actually, your hard work as we've been going through all of the material that we've been doing, because we know it's been a difficult time, and we've been doing all this revision work, which has been really lovely to see. Um, we've been reflecting a lot as a science team about kind of how well the work's going and what's going through. And I think one of the things that would be really useful to have a conversation with you all about is this idea about kind of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Normally, kind of early on in year 11, we host a kind of a big evening where we kind of go, particularly the core subjects, we maths and science, but lots of the other subjects as well, about kind of like, well, what does revision look like in our subject? How do you prepare for your GCSEs? And that's kind of what we've been doing just now. And I feel that a number of people, whilst working really hard, producing the work we need to, which is incredible, have got into this kind of habit of, well, there's the notes, let's do a bit of copy and pasting it, let's stick it in some Cornell notes, let's answer some questions using the same ideas. And there's very little engagement of brain. So we're doing what we need to do, but are we doing it in the most effective way, the most efficient way, the way that's going to genuinely help us? We know it's always more difficult to do this when you're kind of, in essence, on your own, when the support is remote, when there's some guy in the corner of a screen trying to help you, that's the best you get. But we can always make what we're doing better, and actually turning you lot into these kind of wonderful independent learners that can take this forward for the rest of their life is kind of a big part of what we're trying to do. So what I wanted to do was to share a few ideas with you that we normally share at these kind of revision sessions, and see if that can kind of help, maybe not change what you do, but change the kind of the how you're doing about it. So if I just flick over and start showing you this little PowerPoint, what we've got here in this picture is kind of a model of how people learn. So what you've got is kind of the big wide world, the environment here, and part of what we always need to do is to kind of pick one thing that we want to draw your attention to. And if we don't do that effectively, well, no learning happens, because you are getting the key ideas we want to into your head. Now, what we want to do is to get these ideas stored in your long-term memory, and that's what we mean by learning. If we can get a thought, a concept, a bit of science from the big wide world and get it to stay in your long-term memory, then you have learned it. So what we need to do is to get that into your working memory, get you thinking about it, get you encoding that, so it goes up here into your long-term memory. Now, the way the long-term memory works is it's a huge series of links. It's like a giant web with different ideas connecting to other ideas. And why that's really powerful is that the more you learn, the more you know, the easier it is to learn more things. That's why experts find it a lot more simple to pick up new concepts, because they've got this huge interlocking structure already in place. If you're a novice, if you're just starting this journey, well, there's less connections, so it's harder to start getting things in there. But what we want to do is start building these connections so that they stay in long-term memory. And then we need to start getting those things out of your long-term memory, remembering them so you can use them, answer your question in everyday life. So we do an array of different things to help you with that. The more we get you thinking, the more we turn stuff in your working memory into stuff in your long-term memory. Thinking really hard, making links, trying to answer questions, all of these things are kind of things that are going to build long-term memory. And when you're just kind of rewriting your notes, you're not thinking really hard, and it's not necessarily staying in long-term memory. It's there for today. It can answer that particular question, but it isn't going to be here in 12 months' time when we're sitting our GCSEs or using it in the future. The remembering bit's really important as well. The more you remember, the more you build this kind of strong long-term memory, but the easier it is to remember it again in the future. So part of the reason we're asking you to do Tassamite every day is you're doing some of this remembering, and it's not easy, and none of this should be easy. The more difficult it is, actually, the better the long-term memories are. But the more you practice it, the easier you'll find it, and the more you kind of go through this really virtuous loop of learning stuff, getting it in your long-term memory, remembering it again, and building and building and building. So these are all slides that I've stolen from the internet, and they're all things that you can use. So things that work, we know work, we've got good scientific evidence that work, is retrieval practice, remembering stuff. It's why when we're in school we do our catch retain, and it's why we're doing all of this Tassamate type stuff. It's things that you can do on your own. So sitting there, writing a list of key points, writing a flashcard, testing of stuff, well, these are all really useful things. The writing of them isn't. But the actual testing of yourself is something. But then doing this retrieval practice, and it builds a stronger memory. Now that's really, really important in terms of what we're doing. Do that as often as you can, and make it part of this ongoing revision. Well, we're setting you tasks to do every time we've got a lesson, but actually you can do that whenever you want to and however you want to do it. Questioning and elaboration is taking some concepts and having a really good think about them. How does that link to what I already know? What ideas does it make me think of? And the more you're doing that, the more you're kind of encoding that information, the more you're kind of pointing those links in your long-term memory, the more likely it is to stick. Those people that can kind of sit there and look like they're learning lots without writing everything down, I don't make notes, I don't do homework, well, it's a lot most of them do, but if they're thinking about it, they can make these really good connections. So what does that actually mean in the real world? Well, the Cornell notes that we're making you do, well, there's a huge reason for that. A huge reason for that is, well, A, you've got a list of key ideas, that's great. You've got this section for keywords and key questions and a summary where we get you to think really hard about what this work is and how it works, right? The other thing that's really important about it is doing some of this recall practice. What you can be doing is with all these Cornell notes that you've been building up week after week after week, test yourself on them. Sit there, get a bit of paper, cover it up, and try and write down what was on that sheet of paper. Try and write down those notes without looking at them. Go back and check. Cover it up again, see if you can do better. And this kind of process of retrieval practice builds a better long-term memory. Particularly if you've got that summary you've thought really hard about, those keywords or key questions. These are the kind of things that make a huge, huge difference. Other things that are really, really important, or at least there's good evidence for, is this idea of space practice, right? So what you've got below you is the kind of classic model of somebody that's preparing for a test, right? They know the test is on the following Monday, so start of the week they do absolutely nothing because it's not there yet, right? Friday they work a little bit and they stop because they work really hard. Saturday they try, fail. Sunday they cram. Now, actually, for that test on the Monday, they could do okay with that. The problem is they won't build a long-term memory. If you can spread it out, this is the same number of half-an-hour segments spread out over the week, so it's a lot more of something that you can actually do well with, right? That builds a better long-term memory because you spread out that practice. The other thing that makes a huge difference is this thing called interleaving. So we've got this kind of, I suppose, inherent desire to kind of group things together. I'll do some biology revision on a Monday, I'll do some chemistry revision on a Tuesday, I'll do my maths on a Thursday, whatever it is. Well, actually, the more you can mix up those key ideas, the more likely to start spotting links between these subjects, you're more likely to do these harder bits of thinking, more likely to sort of try and build links between different parts of your brain inherently, right? So it makes it easier to remember. So there is an example, an English example, of something that's not been interleaved. One thing on a Monday, one thing on a Tuesday, etc., etc. If you do mix it up, again, the same amount of work, because you've mixed it up, you're more likely to find connections, you're likely to have revision. It's far more effective. So the more you can do things like this, the easier it is for you to start getting these key ideas into your head. And I suppose the big thing for all of us is lots of people working really hard just now, but we're working as smart as we can. The more you can think about the work you're doing, the more you can sit there and go, well, actually, these my notes that I've designed, that I've really interrogated and thought about, and then I've applied them to questions, as opposed to just kind of going through the motions, writing something down, so I've submitted it. The easier you'll find it in the long run, the more likely you are to do it now, and be able to use it in the summer. Now, this is something we're going to keep going back to, so we'll have to work on, but if you've got any questions with that, don't hesitate to get in contact. 4 bits of work this week, and actually our focus for our bits of work on these questions is trying to make them application-style questions. Questions where, yes, you'll have notes, but you can't necessarily go, right, I'll take that sentence and I'll copy it into this and answer that. It's get you to try and think and understand, because actually if you do think and understand, one, well, that's kind of why we're here and kind of what we're doing, but two, you're more likely to be able to remember it again in the future. So try hard, work hard, take care.